Hi, I'm Owen Binks, and you're listening to Weekly Dartscast 180.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Weekly Dartscast, sponsored by Dartwolf. I'm Alex Moss, and joining me as always, darts statistician Burton, DeWitt. How are you doing?
Just a bit nervous, doing something I don't normally do, and that's rooting for Fulham right now, as I need them to defeat Luton Town in the championship right now. How are you doing?
Good luck with that. Yeah, I'm doing okay, thank you. I didn't really want to bring up football after last week's disappointment in the playoffs for my team, Stowmarket, so we'll get straight onto the darts, and there was plenty of it last week and over the weekend to keep us occupied. We'll start off with the Euro Tour in Austria, and a familiar name winning the title, Michael van Gerwen, winning the Austrian Darts Open, getting the jacket as well. And it comes on to our question of the week, a little under 3 months now before the World Matchplay. Do you make MVG the favourite in Blackpool as of right now?
I do, but just narrowly. You know, if you go back just a couple of years ago, he was the favorite in every event and was convincingly the favorite, and rightfully so. I mean, especially when we're talking about his peak era of 2015, 2016, where he was winning almost everything and averaging well on 104 as an average, which was 3-4 points better than anyone else. Gary Anderson and Phil Taylor were normally averaging around the ton. He's not anywhere near that right now, although he is playing at a much higher standard than he was the last couple of years. But beyond that, the number of players who can consistently average around 100 is so much greater, which means there's that increased chance that even when he is playing at his best, he can be beat. Johnny Clayton being the prime example of a player who frequently beats him even when he's playing well. But I think he is and should be the favorite because he is learning to win again and he is getting that confidence back. And I think the Premier League has helped with that. It couldn't hurt being able to just win 3 matches and leave the night as the mini title winner. It can't hurt but your confidence. And now he's added a couple Euro Tour titles to that approach, a title on the floor, and a lot of good performances and consistent performances, which has made him as close to the Michael van Gerwen of old as at any point since, well, even before the start of the pandemic, because I think it was back really in 2019 where the inconsistencies and the doubts started to creep in. So, yeah, I think he is the favorite. I think he should be the favorite right now, but not a heavy favorite. Even with Peter Wright struggling right now, even with Gerwyn Price not being sure where he's at right now, there are still too many players who are playing well and are playing consistently well enough to lift the title. Johnny Clayton being the most obvious other player, but the person he beat in the finals, another one, just won the last major in Danny Noppert. I'm not going to write off Michael Smith yet, even though Michael Smith has been struggling in the Premier League. And obviously James Wade, who's now won a couple of those Premier League nights and is looking every bit the part of one of the 4 or 5 best players in the world. I think there are so many players who on their day can beat Van Gerwen and on their day beat anyone else who throws at them, that yes, Van Gerwen is the favorite, but not a heavy favorite. It's a wide open event. It's been a long time since it's a wide open event where Van Gerwen was the favorite because, well, for so long he was the favorite, and it was a pretty open and shut case that he was going to win it unless something went wrong. Now we're seeing a new era where he can be the favorite, but it's still wide open.
Yeah, you make him the slight favourite, and that's the same with the title sponsors of the World Matchplay. I was having a look earlier. Betfred, they've got MVG 4-1. Then you've got the reigning champion of the tournament, Peter Wright, 11-2. Going Price is the same odds. Johnny Clayton, 7-1, and the rest of them 10-1 or even higher. And Michael, he said in his interviews that winning's the best medicine, and he has been doing a lot of that so far this year. He's won those 3 Premier League nights. He's now got a second Euro Tour title of the year to go with his 2 Players' Championship events this year, and he's already doubled his tally for last year. 2021 won 2 titles. This year he's already got those 4 titles, 7 if you include the 3 Premier League nights. I'm not going to, but some people might. But to say he's back and he's a big favourite again, I think it is still very early days. I think I'm with you as a slight favourite, and I think there are still some frailties in his game, and even when he is winning these tournaments, and we saw it at the weekend in Austria, yeah, there was some great stuff in there. We've got to mention the 106 average against Dirk van Dijvenbode. He had 311 darters in that game, won that 1-6-1. the game against James Wade on the Sunday afternoon, the last 16, he was 4-2 down, pulls out that 170 to break back and an 11 darter to hold and comes through in the decider 6-5. And the game against Danny Noppert as well, there were times where he let him back in. There was a 23 darter that he lost, but he had 7 out of his 8 legs that he won in 15 darts or less. The other leg, 16 darts. So there are some good signs for Michael and his fans. But as I say, there are some signs where he is there for the taking, I think. And even the first game of the weekend against Cameron Menzies, who also had a 170 finish, I think if he'd have took his chances towards the latter end of that game, it could have been closer than the 6-3 scoreline. And even the semi-final against Stephen Bunting as well, which ended up being 7-5, that could have been closer as well. Both of those games, Michael averaging in the low 90s. And we know how many players on the tour can easily average low 90s and even average even higher. So for me, I think, a slight favourite based on the fact that he is winning these titles again now. And that's going to build confidence. That's going to build belief back in his game. And it's going to build that aura back around him, isn't it? That he had 5, 6, 7 years ago when we were turning up to these tournaments and he was a much bigger favourite with the bookmakers and probably a bigger favourite among darts fans. But the first step for him is winning these titles, getting that winning feeling back. Then he's starting to win these major titles again because it's been a long drought for him as far as winning these major titles. But if he can carry on the next few months, maybe even pick up the Premier League title, that would be a big title to win, maybe even the World Cup. He'll go into the World Matchplay as a huge favourite. But I think based on what we've seen so far this year, I would have him as a slight favourite as well.
Well, he beat Danny Noppert in the final, the UK Open champion, a maiden Euro Tour final for the world number 12, and he now looks set to partner Michael van Gerwen at the World Cup. Do you think they could bring it home for the Netherlands next month?
Yeah, I think they're going to be there or thereabouts. So we don't know for sure what the cut-off's going to be. We know the World Cup's around mid-June time, so you'd imagine we're going to probably get 3 Euro Tours, maybe a couple of Players' Championships before we get that cut-off. It might come before then. But start of the year, we were looking at Dirk van Dijvenbode partnering MVG for the second year in a row. Danny Noppert, of course, goes on and wins the UK Open. He's just made this final of the Euro Tour, so the gap between those two now, the Dutch number 2, Dutch number 3, is the best part of 50 grand. So you'd probably say it's going to be Danny Noppert partnering Michael van Gerwen again. And we look back to 2020, their first year together they had in the World Cup, and on that final day, Michael had his injury problems carried on in the event. They lost out in the quarterfinals to Germany, but Michael's had a few different partners since he last won this title with Raymond van Barneveld 2018, 3 different partners in the last 3 years. And they've had deep runs every single time. Jermaine Wattermina semi-finals, Danny Noppert, who I just mentioned, quarterfinals, and then Dirk van Dijvenbode last year, quarterfinals. So I think they are going to be there or thereabouts. I think we can say that Danny Noppert, compared to that 2020 World Cup debut to now, 18 months on, a bit like Johnny Clayton. He's picked up a major. He's a much improved player on that stage. So I think they are going to be amongst the favourites. I'd probably put Wales still as the favourite at this moment in time, going price. Johnny Clayton, who won it in emphatic fashion in 2020, and a little bit unfortunate not to win it, I think, last year, losing a pairs decider in the semi-finals with a 103 average. That doesn't happen very often in the World Cup. And we should mention the defending champions, Peter Wright, John Henderson. We don't know if John's going to get the co-stompy treatment and not be able to play because he is so far down the rankings at the moment. I think he's the 6th highest Scottish player. So if he does get the nod, then that would be great to see those two partner up again. If it's not him, then there's going to be a queue of players getting ready to partner up with Peter Wright. So you'd put them in there. The England team as well, Michael Smith, James Wade, that's going to be a new pairing for England this year. We don't know how they're going to get on. And then some more established names we should mention: Australia, Damon Hare, Simon Whitlock; Austria, Mensur Suljovic, Roby John Rodriguez; and Belgium, Dimitri van der Berg, Kim Huybrechts. But as far as the Dutch team, they're both major winners. That's not something that the Netherlands team have had since Raymond van Barneveld retired and then came back. And this World Cup team, he's had different partners, Michael. But I think Danny Noppert back involved this year, I imagine they're going to get to the final day. And yeah, maybe we could be talking about the Dutch team winning that title again.
Yeah, I think just like the last question where we said Michael van Gerwen's the favorite for Blackpool, I think right now should be close to the favorite for the World Cup. I think I agree with you that the favorite is Wales, having not seen the odds, but at least in my mind, who should be the favorite right now is Wales, but only narrowly, because there are injury questions with Gerwyn Price right now. He's been struggling for much of the year, a little over, dating back to last year, for fitness, he could still win if he's unfit. He was only the world number one for much of last year and winning titles despite battling injuries. And obviously Johnny Clayton has been just phenomenal for over a year now. But that still makes it a little bit more difficult to really tip them when we're not sure what state Gerwen Price's game is in right now. Scotland, again, we don't know who's going to be partnering Peter Wright, but also Peter Wright has been really inconsistent since becoming world number one. He's had moments, but he's also had first-round exits just as often as he's had good nights. And I just don't know. Obviously, a month and a half is a bit of time for things to change, but right now I don't have confidence in Peter Wright to captain the Scottish team to a third World Cup title in 4 years because his game just isn't on par with the Welsh team or the Dutch team's game right now. But then also don't forget the English team. Yes, Michael Smith still somehow has not won a major title, but he's set to play with James Wade, who is looking every bit the part of the world number four and is looking every bit the part of a player who wants to be in that conversation for best player in the world. And he's always in the conversation for a player who can win any given event because, for the past 16 years, he always has seemed to at least make the final of something over the course of the year, if not stealing an event or two. But right now he's really playing with a well-rounded game. And, credit to Mac Elkin, he might get tip of the year for mentioning just how well the scoring was there, but the finishing wasn't clicking, but he's James Wade. It's eventually going to click. Well, it has for the last month, and that's why Wade's won a couple of Premier League nights. That's a pair that I think can do a lot of damage. So again, just like the World Matchplay is wide open, I think the World Cup's wide open, but the Dutch team is right there in the conversation, and Danny Noppert will be the strongest partner Van Gerwen's had since, probably like 2015, 2016 era Van Barneveld. Even stronger, of course, than when Danny Noppert last was in the World Cup because Danny Noppert is such a better player. And Michael van Gerwen's a better player right now than he was 2 years ago. So the Dutch team does have every shot. But let's see what the other teams are like. Let's see what the form is like in a month and then come back to it. They definitely, though, have a chance.
And now move on to our first guest on this week's show, a player that we will be seeing in the World Cup next month for South Africa. He's our chat with the former Euro Tour champion, Devon Petersen.
I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the former Euro Tour champion, Devon Petersen. Thanks for the time, Devon. How are you doing?
Hey, Alex. Thanks for having me. It's been a while, and a catch-up is long overdue.
Definitely is. And before we get into it, first of all, two things. Have you finished Eric Bristow's book yet, and have you managed to shake off Josh Rock?
Josh was slightly tough to kind of shake off, but he had a miserable journey. So, yeah, it was great to capture a picture of one of PDC's future talents. Great potential and a great kid. And then the Eric Bristow book, I'm taking a chapter for chapter, really. Every time I'm on a flight, I try and read a chapter because I don't want to complete the book too quickly. I am enjoying the stories just in and around darts and about players that I've idolized over the years and just see how normal they are. And also the mischief and trouble they got themselves into. So, yeah, I think it's a book that deserves a Netflix kind of series, and it would be something that darts would welcome, I'm sure.
We'd love to see that. Well, as you mentioned, there is a lot to catch up with you on since we last had you on our show, just after that Euro Tour title win in Germany towards the end of 2020. I guess the first thing to mention is the European Championship a few weeks after that. What did it feel like going back to Germany that week as the number 4 seed, going into a major as one of the most informed players as well?
Yeah, it was different because obviously I'm always between kind of like in the kennels with the dogs and scrapping for the last bit of the meat, and now I'm kind of served on a platter and just eating from the top of the tree. And it was a different mentality about the form, like you said, the confidence. It just kind of put me in like a place of me deserving to be there, and not being gifted or just getting there by the hairs on my chin, you know what I mean? So yeah, it was a different mentality, but it was something that I was quite ready for, and I think that it's taught me a lot. It's taught me about the highs and lows and just of the game, and also just the mentality needed to be one of those players. And I think that I if it wasn't for the injury, I would have been sustaining it for longer periods. But yeah, there's a slow rebuild, and yeah, I'm feeling like a lot of my form has turned around now, and I feel like I can push on again. So comfortability is there with the throw, and just feeling like, yeah, the best is still yet to come.
We should mention that weekend as well, making your first major semi-final. You played at a high-level all-tournament before just being edged out in a decider by James Wade. How do you look back on that run now?
Yeah, I think it's something that I welcome because there's a lot of footage to kind of digest, but also there's a lot of mistakes I made in that game, like a lot of finishing errors, just setup and just timing and stuff that I can work on. So yeah, it was a great achievement, but I don't think it will be my best. I feel as though there's a lot still left in the tank and a lot left to learn. So yeah, it is one of those tick boxes now. Next one is to hopefully make a final of a major and then win a major. So yeah, and I'm hoping that major is the world champ. So yeah, I think it's all about the experience and just getting in the end getting that out of the green and making it to that final.
And last year we saw you go on another deep run quarterfinals of the UK Open. We saw your results start to dip after that, and last year ended with that early exit at Ali Pali. You said it was time to reset, come back stronger in 2022. Can you put your finger on wrong last year and what work you put in during that month between the Worlds and the new season?
Yeah, it was. So there was a slight little wrist injury that I had. Didn't make too much song and dance about it simply because you don't want to kind of give that kind of info away. But now that it's past me, I can. So there was an injury that could have nearly put me out for a few months if I had to have the operation on it. There was injections that was proposed, or I had to change my throw so that it alleviates the pain and the way the dart or my wrist actually moves. So I chose the alleviating or changing of the throw. So it alleviates the pain, and yeah, it's caused me a lot more trouble than I thought because now I have to unlearn that throw and throw back to how I used to throw. So yeah, it's been gradual. I mean, it took me about 6 months to kind of play without pain, and then from there continuously just working, breaking down from stance to kind of just body posture and all of those things. And Chris White as well as Wayne Mardell was instrumental in that. And I think that my throw now is something that I can actually count on and depend on and trust. So yeah, I feel as though that kind of period of that euphoria I felt when winning the Euros, and then averaging low 80s, probably some of the games were 70 as well, just shambolic in a sense, but understanding that the games are all about high and low, and it gave me a lot to think about, and also it built a lot of my character because I knew that I just had to go through this dark period, and once I come out of it, I'll be stronger than I was before I went in it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that strong period now.
And we did see you back a little earlier than expected this year with that late call-up for the Masters. What was it like playing in the Masters for the first time, and also seeing your close friend Joe Cullen go all the way and win it?
Yeah, it was crazy though, because it was obviously it was still basically COVID times, and I was quite close to the top 24. It's not that you wished upon anybody, but you knew that if there was any time that there was going to be a withdrawal, would be that this time around, like within the COVID time. So yeah, it was different. I was preparing for as if I was going to play in it. So when I got the call up, I wasn't kind of shocked by it in a sense by I'm not prepared. I was prepared for it. But Luke Humphries was just very good on the night, and seeing Joe lift his first major title, knowing that he was playing really well and got a nice purple patch going through, and also well deserved on Premier League selection. I mean, he's not playing his best right now, but still showing that he can mix with the boys. So yeah, it's a double win for me because myself and Joe has come a long way, and a lot of the times I'm gonna say there's been like moments where we've kind of not depended directly on each other, but there's moments where you can kind of grab little bits of nuggets of information or just kind of just support and just be there for each other. And I think that him obviously going through what he's done and then lifting the trophy was magical for him and his family.
And one of the reasons we wanted to get you back on the show this week as well is we saw the news recently about your academy, the Devon Petersen Darts Academy, working with your sponsor Shot Darts, a 3-year deal developing darts in Africa. Talk to us about that and your plans for the academy.
It's major. It's massive for me though, simply because it was a goal that started in probably 2019, 2018, and yeah, COVID obviously put it back. JDC was a massive part of it, giving kids the opportunity to compete on a global level and just seeing how they match up to international players as well. So it was something that was always in the works, but once COVID obviously came on, we had to wait for all the restrictions to be lifted, especially in Africa, and understand that the place is safe for the kids to play. And then going back in April, which is a few weeks ago. It was great to actually see it come to fruition, really, and just come alive, and just seeing the kids' eyes light up and the coaching, and I was able to kind of launch it with some corporates in South Africa, and a lot of people are looking to jump on board. Shock came on board first without needing to kind of beg and kind of promote it in a sense. They've been fantastic, and it's the kind of company that I am happy that I'm partnering up with and kind of have me as one of their profile players. Simply because it's not just about darts, it's about the support structure and the future of the sport, and they kind of showed a keen eye for it, and I'm glad that they've joined me and the academy. And then, there's 2 academies now in South Africa, and we adopted one in Nigeria as well, and hopefully looking to launch one in the US, which is keen opportunities and really going to expand and use my experience and expertise that I've gained over the years and impart that with the kids, and hopefully we can change the future of darts, and I have a legacy in that and a hand in that kind of future of changing of darts.
Keep up the great work with that. And speaking of the youngsters, I love the video of you at the school back here in the UK helping out the PDC with their Bullseye numeracy campaign, dancing along to your walk-on. That's probably the longest you've danced to that song, isn't it? Usually it's only a few seconds on the stage.
Yeah, it was different, but the kids enjoyed it as well, which kind of gives you a different kind of outlook on how they see darts. I mean, the numeracy of the dart is a skill that we've learned and we take for granted. Some of us still trying to learn it. But yeah, the numeracy is a massive thing, and I think that the PDC along with the Bullseye math program is fantastic, just to introduce a math lesson through a practical experience. And I think that kind of being there gave me a outlook as well, as in just to understand, like, being a role model is more than just throwing darts and being good at darts, actually doing stuff outside of on and off the hockey as well. So yeah, it was a great day. It was great meeting the kids and get to sign and just see their eyes light up. And then the dancing is always a little party piece, and everybody enjoyed it. And like you said, it was found myself like out of bed after dancing for that long, but it was enjoyable nonetheless.
Glad to hear it. And we should mention as well, Danny Baggish, you called him your new roomie. How much have you enjoyed doing the tour with Danny these last few months?
Yeah, Danny's obviously a different kind of breed. He's an American, so they come with their own kind of vibe and mood and stuff. And yeah, Danny's Danny's an amazing player. I think once he realizes that he'll achieve his full potential on the tour, it's tough. Obviously, it's not easy leaving home, because there's a lot of people that you leave behind simply to follow your dream, and sometimes those sacrifices you feel a bit guilty and stuff like that kind of puts you in a position of whether you should continue. And sometimes the support is there, but it's not about the support. It's about from a mental perspective, because darts is always played between the ears basically, and you kind of look at it from a point as in, will Danny ever kind of achieve his full potential? But I feel as though having him in my corner and on my side is always a fun element to Danny. And yeah, I hope long may his career continue, and whatever he's going through right now, it's a tough time, but I'm sure that he'll be stronger when he returns.
The World Cup, we should mention as well, it's only a month away. Stefan Vermaak will be partnering you. We saw the video you put up on Twitter of his double to win the qualifier. He looked pretty excited. Can you tell us a bit more about Stefan? He's also signed now with Shot Darts. What can we expect at the World Cup?
Stefan is a fantastic talent, a phenomenal talent. He's 18 years old. He will be 19 by the time the World Cup comes around. And he's got the student mentality. He reminds me a lot of myself, like not just from an achievement perspective, but just his demeanor and just wanting to achieve and success as well, his major appetite for success. So yeah, it didn't come as a surprise, but when I saw him dominate in the final, that was slightly a bit surprising, because the maturity that he showed in that final as well, winning 7-0, but also just to kind of get over the line. I've been there a few times. The doubles become smaller when you need to get over the line, and he found it quite easy to do that. So yeah, I think coming on stage, he's told me a lot about his aspirations of coming to Q school and working hard to that. I've seen him, he's made the provincial team, which is like the South African county teams. for Eastern Cape. So he's definitely making his mark. And I think COVID, whilst they were playing the online, he played a lot of international tournaments and putting up some impressive averages where people thought there were times where he was cheating simply because they didn't think that South Africans could kind of throw in that way or perform in that way. So yes, definitely is definitely going to be a talent to watch. And I'm sure that come on in June, I think it's the 16th of June or the 17th of June when we play our first round game. It will be fantastic to see him perform on the stage and show the world exactly what he's about.
Looking forward to that debut. And back to you, a return to the pack calendar this year. You're in Leverkusen this weekend for the Euro Tour. Then we've got 2 Players' Championships next week during the week. What are the goals for you for the rest of this season now?
I think major goal is to definitely make the world. That is always the number one. The rest of the tournaments that fall between that is just a bonus. But getting to the world and being in peak form, I think now with everything, with no problems with the throw, kind of just need to find form and consistency. That's kind of where I'm at. And I think that once I get there to the world, I'll be quite comfortable. And who knows, I could be lifting that trophy next season.
And lastly, away from the darts, we know you're a big Liverpool fan. I won't mention my team, but can Liverpool complete the quadruple this season?
So I think 3 trophies definitely. The quadruple, we have to wait for a mistake from Man City. So that is always a tough one because Pep Guardiola's men are really efficient and they have been really good all season. I think that the quadruple, obviously with the opportunity of the quadruple, that's great. But I think that the final that they're in so far, I think that focus on that more. And then if the league comes, then great, but you're going to have to wait for the slip. But Liverpool has showed dominance this season, even though Pep Guardiola's men are top of the league. They were flying by 10 points, so nobody thought that we could catch them, and we did. So, yeah, let's see. I mean, there might be a twist in the tail with Aston Villa, hopefully kind of Gerrard's men doing us a favour, and this way Gerrard will kind of almost pay us back for the mistake, or not the slip, but not the mistake, the slip he made against Chelsea. But yeah, I think the 3 trophies we can kind of write our name on it, and we'll just hope and see for the league.
We shall see. Well, Devon, it's always a pleasure to catch up with you. We appreciate the time. Congratulations again on the launch of the Academy. Wish you all the best with that, and wish you all the best with your darts as well for the rest of the year.
Thanks a lot for having me, Alex. And yeah, hopefully next time we catch up, there's a trophy or majors involved.
Thanks again to Devon for joining us. Now on to the Women's Series. The second weekend of the year took place in Wigan at the weekend. And last week we discussed who could add their name to the roll of honour to join Lisa Ashton and Fallon Sherrick this year. Neither of us mentioned Trina Gulliver. How surprising was her title win?
I mean, there have been signs, especially last year at the back end of the year when she played some of the Women's Series events, that she still had it, or she at least still had that fighting spirit to grind out a win. And that's why she had made a semifinal near the end of last year and had some decent performances at times. But just looking at the performances she put in that first event on Saturday, it really is surprising because she was nowhere near her best and really didn't get tested that much until the last 16. Across her 6 matches, she didn't average over 69.07 in anything other than that last 16 match, where she played a very good match to beat the Dutch woman Lorena Reitberger. And then in the final, where it was a nervy start, they had a couple legs where both of them missed a bunch of darts at double, and it's why you started 21-22 darters, but she put in some good darts from then on out, and her scoring was really good in that match and averaged over 80 in the final. And that's the 2 times she needed to play well, she did. So even though she finished 18th on the day in averages, you don't put averages on the trophy for a reason, because she didn't need to do any better, except for those 2 matches. And when she did, she lifted her game and won. And that's the Trina Gulliver of old. The Trina Gulliver of old knew how to beat her opponent. You can't be surprised that a champion still has that spirit and still has that fight. But no, I didn't expect her to win a title this weekend. I did think she would have a good run at some point. I thought a quarterfinal or a semifinal was well within her reach. And, if she had a favorable draw, maybe even a final. And yes, she did have a favorable draw. All the big names were in the bottom half in this particular event. Or I shouldn't say all the big names, but the 3 leading names in Lisa Ashton, Fallon Sherrick, and Makura Suzuki were all in the bottom half. she was a deserved champion, and it's not that surprising in the general scheme of things. So how surprised? I'll do it on a scale of, what scale should we do it on?
Out of 10.
Out of 10? All right, I was trying to think of it out of like famous darts upsets of all time. But no, scale 0 to 10, I'll put it at a 6.5, 7. It definitely is not something I thought, but if you do recall, I did say there would be at least one of the events won by someone other than the big two. Trina Gulliver wasn't the name I threw out, but it's not a name that I would have looked twice at when I saw. I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10.
Well, being honest, I was surprised to see her win the title, and a pleasant surprise. I should add that as well, because Trina is one of the legends of our sport. She's a trailblazer for the women's game, 10-time world champion. She's won countless other titles as well, and we were fortunate enough to speak to her back in July 2020 as part of our Darts Legends series that we were doing back then. And the last time we'd heard from Trina was when she pulled out of the 2020 BDO World Championship due to bad health, and she said that she was very poorly at the time, and she said to us that she was lucky to be alive, and little did we know the problems that she had been going through. And we found out it was around this time last year, actually. She did an interview with Phil at Online Darts, some might know him as Scalzi, but it was a very open interview with Trina, and she opened up about her battle with alcoholism. And one of the lines from that interview, she said that sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to make you stand up and realise. And to think a year on from that interview, and here she is as a winner of one of these women's series events, and the comeback in darts that started a few months after that interview. She played a few of the WDF events in Chelsea, Bridlington, didn't have any deep runs there, but as you touched on, the return of the women's series at the end of last year, she did have some deep runs there, making semi-finals, making quarter-finals, and I think in one of the semi-finals she was one leg away from making the final. And even at the start of this year as well, we've seen a lot more of her. We saw her play a day at Q School, we saw her play the World Seniors Championship as well, the first weekend of the women's series, getting to a quarter-final. So, as you say, we did see that she is capable of having deep runs in these events. For me, I think a title, I wasn't expecting it, but every credit to her. And it wasn't the prettiest of title wins, as you say, the averages at the start, and even the first couple of rounds, the first round at a 30 darter, a 36 darter, second round at a 32 darter in there. But you look at the stats as well, and there were some quality in there as well. She rounded off that first round game with a 15 darter, 106 out, and then later on as well, the semi-finals, another 15 darter, 121 to win it. And even in the final as well, there was a 16 darter, 14 darter. So there was quality in and amongst it on that run to the title. And even at the end of the weekend as well, okay, she didn't have another deep run like that, but she did get a win over one of the big three in the tournaments at the weekend, Mikuru Suzuki. So yeah, I'm very pleased for her, and she's well in the mix now for that Women's World Matchplay. There's still 4 events to go, a long way to go, but what a moment that would be to see Trina Gulliver on the Winter Garden stage, and she's given herself every chance now.
Now, beyond Trina Gulliver, another 2 titles for Lisa Ashton, one more for Fallon Sherrick, 2 goals for Fulham already, 40 minutes in. But did anyone else catch your eye at Wigan in the weekend?
I think you have to start with Laura Turner, don't you, making 2 finals. And we look back to the first weekend of the Women's Series, the highest average that Laura had in one of her matches was just under 67. This past weekend, 16 of her 22 matches she played, she had a higher average than that. 10 of them were in the 70 pluses, 3 in the 80 pluses. And the fact that I've said that she played 22 matches at the weekend, that tells you how well she did at the weekend, getting to those back-to-back finals. And okay, there were some long legs in there which she won, there were some long legs in there which she lost, but she showed her battling qualities on that day, getting to the 2 finals and putting those setbacks behind her. When you lose a leg like that goes 30 odd darts, it can put players off, but she stuck at it and she won legs like that, as I mentioned. But the determination there as well, and as much as there was some long legs, she had some great finishes in and amongst those runs. I think there's a 146 in there, a 91, and the game against Fallon Sherrick in the semi-finals to beat her 5-1. The smallest checkouts, there was a 48, a 70, a 75, all last dart in hand. So they're smaller finishes, but they're just as crucial, and especially in a game like that. And she punished all the mistakes that Fallon made at the doubles towards the end. And I think every credit as well, getting to 2 finals in a day as well, because that first final finished at 3:07 p.m. and then the first game in event 2 for a 3:23 p.m. So 16 minutes break between those two matches, and to go all the way and make the final again. And there's only been 3 players that have made multiple finals in one day in the women's series: Lisa Ashton, Fallon Sherrock, as you'd imagine. Laura Turner's added her name to that list as well. So definitely got to start off by mentioning a couple other names I'll mention, and then I'll leave some for you. But got to mention Mikuru Suzuki, her first women's series weekend of the year. She missed the first one, but she had 2 quarterfinals and a semi-final, and she's well in contention now for the Women's World Matchplay, despite missing that first weekend. I think she's only £350 off the top 8, so she's made a lot of groundwork at the weekend to get into that. And one other name I mentioned, I gave her a shout out last week as my dark horse. I said she might make a last 16 or a quarterfinal. I thought it might have been a bit too early for a final or to win a title, but she made a final, and what a run it was on that final day, getting to the final, Katie Sheldon. And I've got to mention the semi-final against Fallon Sherrock, and 3-1 down, she comes back, wins legs in 16, 17, 18 darts, all 3 legs in a row to go 4-3 up. It goes to a deciding leg. Fallon Sherrock throws in a 140 to leave 70. Katie Sheldon steps up 1-2-2, takes it out on the bull, and as I mentioned last week, only 18 years of age to do that. I think she is the youngest to make one of these finals, and she's making big strides already this year, and to get to a final, very impressive stuff.
Yeah, you said the names I was mostly going to say, but I'll add a little bit more on them. I'll start the same place you did with Laura Turner, with those pair of finals. So obviously, making the final both events on the first day, she lost to the champion in both events. But then on the second day, okay, she didn't lose to the champion. She lost to the person who made the finals in both events, the runner-up, losing to Lisa Ashton in the third event in the quarterfinal, and then losing early to Katie Sheldon. But obviously, Katie Sheldon went all the way and made the final. So you had to be a pretty good and on-form player to beat Laura Turner at the weekend. And yes, the stats might not have been there, but again, kind of like Trina Gulliver, she played her opponent and she lifted her game when it mattered. And that's why she made 2 finals and only lost out to people who made the final of the events. You also mentioned Mikuru Suzuki. Well, one thing I had mentioned at the start of the year was the big gulf between the top 2 and everyone else. Now, both Lisa Ashton and Fallon Sherrock statistically have regressed a bit from last year, where they were averaging in that 83, 84 range. Now they're averaging Fallon Sherrock exactly 80 and Lisa Ashton 80, little under 81.5. So both have regressed a little bit. But Mikuru Suzuki is slotting in just a 1.5 behind that. The gap from Lisa Ashton to Fallon Sherrock in averages is basically the gap from Fallon Sherrock to Mikuru Suzuki. And Mikuru Suzuki, okay, she didn't necessarily lose to the champion in each event, but what happened on the weekend? Lisa Ashton won 2 events, Trina Gulliver won one event, and Fallon Sherrock won 1 event. Who are the 4 people that Mikuru Suzuki lost to? Lisa Ashton twice, Trina Gulliver, and Fallon Sherrock. Not in the events that they won, although she lost to Lisa Ashton in one of Lisa's 2 titles. But the only 4 people to beat her, including Lisa Ashton twice, are the 4 title winners. So it's a similar thing to what went on with Laura Turner. Only the best players were beating Mikuru Suzuki, and we were seeing a lot of really good performances from her. She struggled against Trina Gulliver in her final match, but that was really about it. There were a couple others in the low 70s. Most of her matches were in that mid to high 70s range, with some being a little bit better. So she was playing at a consistently mid to high 70s average, which is going to get ranking points, and it's going to win events at some point if you're doing that every single match, especially if you can just add a little bit to it. And we know she can. She averaged over 90 in a world final. So for Mikuru Suzuki, I was impressed. Who else caught my eye? I'll say Lorraine Winstanley as well. She's the only player who has cashed at every single event so far. Still somehow not made a final, but has made a semifinal, made 2 semifinals rather, and a bunch of quarterfinals, just consistently getting money on her ranking and playing at a pretty high standard overall. Didn't catch my eye specifically for this women's series, mostly just for the fact that she's been consistent over the 2 weekends and as a player to watch entering the next one, as she tries to make sure that she qualifies for the Women's World Matchplay, but also to try to win one of these events.
And now move on to our next guest on this week's show. It is the winner of one of the Women's Series events at the weekend, the 10-time champion of the world, Trina Gulliver.
I'm delighted to say I'm joined by the 10-time world champion and the newest winner on the PDC Women's Series, Trina Gulliver. Thanks for the time again, Trina. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay, thank you.
Glad to hear it. And there's only one place to start, and that is with that title on Saturday in Wigan. I think you had around an hour or so before you then played the second event of the day. Have you had time now to let it sink in what you achieved?
No, not really. It's a bit strange, really, because I didn't, I've just been playing and I'm seeing how I fare, and taking it steady and coming back into the game. And it's to win one was something that I wouldn't say I couldn't do, because obviously I can, but it's something that I was just feeling my way a little bit, to see if I could get back into that environment, really. And it all went well.
Definitely did, and we'll come back to the weekend. But the last time we had you on our show was as part of our Darts Legend series back in the summer of 2020, back in a time when there was hardly any events on for the ladies. Do you remember the first time you got your darts back out the case and you were playing again?
Not so long back, really, to be fair. I quite enjoyed the break, to be honest. I was just in my own recovery sort of situation, so it was quite nice to have that break.
You mentioned your recovery. It was around this time last year we saw your brave interview opening up about your battle with alcoholism, and you said it was something that you'd wanted to talk about for a while. What persuaded you at that time to open up about it?
I just think it was the right time for me, for me to talk about it. I've had a lot of help and some counselling and, family support has been tremendous. And, my partner as well, Nicole, they've just been outstanding. And not only that, it's it's my friends and sponsors. They've just been, and strangers even, they've just been great and fully supported. But it's been a difficult journey, and it's an ongoing thing. And but I'm doing okay.
Good to hear. And we saw from the interview the reaction from darts fans as well. A lot of people supporting you. What was that like for you to receive all those comments off the back of the interview as well?
Yeah, like I said, that's lovely, and it's so nice that people kind of like understand. If that's the correct word, and their support does mean a lot, because it's a scary time to decide to speak out about it. Whereas before it's something that you've tried to hide all the time. So speaking about it has helped me progress with it myself, and being open about it to others is, it gives them the idea that, it's kind of like if they was to see me with a drink, I'd like them to tell me, So it's like another kind of support, backup kind of thing. So that's why I was honest about it. I want to do my best with this. I don't want to go back where I was. It was a scary place, and I felt so poorly, and I don't want to go back there. So I will do whatever I can to stay away from that.
Well, let's get on to this comeback that you've had the last 12 months. We've seen you back on the hockey, playing in the Women's Series. You played a few of the WDF events as well, the World Seniors as well. How challenging was it for you to come back, and how much did the support behind the scenes with your family and friends help you do that?
Incredibly. It's I wanted to go back into. I was in two minds whether to go back into that environment again. That would be obviously a big challenge, and that's why I've tiptoed myself around it a little bit and just dabbled, and to see if I can cope with that. And it seems I'm doing okay. So, but everybody else around me, the support of family and friends and fellow dart players as well, that that are kind of like looking out for me as well at the same time, making sure I'm okay. So, which is great. And and I've come back into playing in the seniors because I qualify now. And I've really enjoyed it, and I've enjoyed the PDC part of it as well, and the women's series as well. So yeah, I'm enjoying the darts at the moment, but it is very tiring.
Especially when you're making finals and winning titles. A lot of darts to throw, isn't there?
Yeah, it is indeed.
Well, before your comeback started, of course, it was announced that you'd signed a new deal with Winmore. How much did it mean to you to have them still behind you? Because I think they've been with you for quite a long time, dating back to your early years in the game.
I've been with them for over 25 years now. Winmore, wow. They were, like you say, they've been very supportive, and yes, they've fully backed me, and yeah, that's been great. And knowing that people are there supporting me. Because it can be. It's a bit embarrassing to admit sometimes, that you've got a problem, and when you think that you've been hiding it so much for so long, that for them to offer that support is fantastic.
Definitely. Well, let's touch on the women's series. Last year we had 2 weekends. You made 2 quarterfinals, 3 semi-finals from those 12 events. How pleased were you with that return? Did you expect it to go that well straight away?
No, I didn't. No, not at all. I was. I went there with no expectations. It's just like, just go and play, see if you can handle it, and just try and enjoy it, sort of thing. And so yeah, to come out with that, I'd surprised myself. So so it was all good. It was all positive.
You finished high up enough on that women's series Order Merit to earn a free entry for Q School this year. We saw you play one of the days. Was that always the plan, to try out for that one day?
Yes, it was. I thought I'd just give it a go and see how I fare again. It's just stepping stones basically, and happy to take the opportunity that the PDC had given us. So.
And another big stepping stone was getting back on the big stage, and we saw you play the first World Seniors Championship, playing the man that would go on to win the whole thing, Robert Thornton. What was that experience like at the Circus Tavern?
Yeah, that was great. It was a bit scary, not being on the stage for so long. So a bit scary, but yeah, I enjoyed it as well, and glad I went out to the winner.
Was that the first time you've played the Circus Tavern, or have you played there before?
No, it's the first time I played Circus Tavern. I've been a spectator there for a few times, sort of thing, but that's the first time I played there. So yeah, it was nice. I enjoyed it.
Well, a stage that you're more familiar to, we're going to see you back on it, is the Lakeside, the first World Seniors Masters coming up later this month. How much are you looking forward to getting back on that stage?
Yeah, it's a special place, isn't it? Lakeside, it's a special place for darts, and it'd be great to get back up there, and hopefully it'll be kind to me like it has been in the past.
Of course, we did see you make an appearance off the Okia at Lakeside last month for the WDF World Championship. What was it like being back at Lakeside, seeing that event return, the Women's World Championship again?
Yeah, again, all positive. Prize money's increased, the format's increased, and with it being 24 players. So yes, it's always nice to be back there. Like you say, everybody says it's the home of darts, and it's every darts player's wish to play on that stage, and to be back there, it gives you a bit of goosebumps again, sort of thing. So yeah, good place for me.
And I know you mentioned earlier you're taking this comeback steady, but have you got your eye on trying to qualify for that Women's World Championship again?
I'm hoping to. At the beginning of it, I wasn't thinking that, but now I've kind of I've done better than I thought. So it's kind of like a natural progression as to, we'll just see how it goes. If it does, it does. That'll be a bonus. But first and foremost, it's not to put too much pressure on myself to achieve that. So because that's not good for me.
Definitely. Well, let's get back to the weekend just gone, and the first event of the weekend. You open up with a 4-0 win, legs won in 18, 30, 36 and 15 darts. Fair to say a mixed bag to start the weekend, but when did you start to think something special might be on the cards?
Well, that first game, I thought you've got to step up. You've got to step up here, otherwise you're not going to get very far. So yes, it wasn't a pretty first game, but yeah, so I got better as the day went on, so that was good. But I was a bit scared at the beginning of the day, thinking that's not good enough.
Well, it definitely did get better, and I've got to mention that the last 16 game as well with Lorena Rietberg, and you took out a 120 in the first leg. She replies with a 156, breaks you to go 2-1 up. You then go 16, 16, 17. A win like that must have given you a lot of confidence going into the end of the day.
Yeah, it was. It was a fast and furious game as well, and she played really well, and luckily my game was there to back it up. But yeah, it was fast and furious. I enjoyed that game.
And then the final with Laura Turner, you had a 16 dart, a 14 darter in there. The last leg of the match, you kick off with 2 140s. The last dart, you move across the oche, find the double 16. What was that moment like when it finds the double 16 and you have won the title?
But to be honest, I couldn't see it at all, or barely. I could barely see it. And if you look at it, it went in. It sort of like came off the barrel and flipped into it, kind of thing. So it's a bit of a lucky dart, I think. But I'll take it. But yeah, it was great. I couldn't quite believe it, to be fair. I don't think at the time. I didn't realise what I'd achieved. Well, I was just playing another game, really. And plodding on, but yeah, it's starting to sink in a bit now. So yeah, it's great. I didn't know how to react, really. It's just a bit strange. Strange because of winning lots of titles in the past, and I was just thinking, oh wow, I've done it.
Well, it is your first Women's Series title, but as you say, you've won countless titles over the year. And my co-host Burton and I, we were trying to work out the last title that you'd won at a similar level. I wanted to say that the Lincolnshire Open 2018, is that the last one, or has there been one since then before this weekend?
No, I think that's it. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that the 10 world titles, they still sit proudly at the top of your achievements in the game. But this title on Saturday, that must be right up there, especially given what you've had to overcome. Yeah, it is, and it's slightly sweeter, if you like, because nobody above me included, I'd never thought I'd be back winning a title of any kind, So to be back and win with such a great line of players as well, then yes, I'm chuffed to bits. Really, really happy. It's well deserved. And in the last month, we've seen two 18-year-olds make their mark in the ladies' game. Bo Greaves winning Lakeside, Katie Sheldon making a final on the Women's Series. Who else should we be keeping an eye out for in the ladies' game? Because it looks like the level is rising.
Well, I think there's quite a few, to be fair. I mean, Laura had a good weekend. Everything seemed to just go right for her this weekend. Other than taking one of the titles, which she was unfortunate not to, but she's had a really good weekend. So if her game continues to progress, then that's someone to look out for.
Lastly, before we let you go, the title that puts you right in the mix for that Women's World Matchplay. Still 4 events, one more weekend to come. I know you're not putting too much expectation on yourself, but are you starting to dream of playing at the Winter Gardens yet?
Not yet. Not yet. No, I'll do just one game at a time, and we'll see where we're at. It would be nice, but I'm not going to put any pressure on myself.
Fair enough. Well, fingers crossed for that. Congratulations again on the title of the weekend. We wish you all the best for the next weekend, and of course what else is to come in 2022.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again to Trina for joining us. Now on to the Premier League and picks time. Night 13 of this year's Premier League comes to us from Glasgow. Here are our picks for the quarterfinals. First game, and it is the two home favourites, Peter Wright against Gary Anderson. How do you see the first one going?
It's a really, really important match for Peter Wright. If you look, really, other than obviously there's still the battle for who's going to finish top, but really the only, at least it seems like the only real race left for the playoffs is between Peter Wright and Joe Cullen. Maybe Geraint Price can still drag himself into it. And the interesting thing is the 3 first-round matches for Peter Wright are the same as the 3 first-round matches for Joe Cullen the rest of the way. Obviously not in the same order. They can't both be playing Gary Anderson on this night. Peter has Gary Anderson, then he has Michael van Gerwen, then he has James Wade, while Joe Cullen has Michael van Gerwen, then James Wade, and finally Gary Anderson. Obviously, Gary Anderson is the one that you will most expect to get points out of those three. You might have to get points multiple of those nights if you're going to get through. For Gary Anderson, he's really just playing for pride. This is a huge match for Peter Wright, and I think he's going to lift his game and get the result. Gary Anderson played his best match in the Premier League all season last week, but it wasn't enough. I don't know if Peter Wright's going to do as well as that, but I don't think he'll need to. I think Peter Wright's going to win it. I'll go a close one. I've been giving Gary Anderson a lot of lopsided results. I think Gary will hang with his fellow Scotsman here, but I'll go 6-4 to the world number one.
Well, that's the exact same scoreline that I've gone for, 6-4 to Peter Wright. And you look back to last week, as you say, Gary Anderson, it was a much improved performance against Michael Smith. Didn't come away with the win, and the doubles, they really let him down. He should have made it 3-3. In the end, he loses that leg to go 4-2 down. Michael Smith wins the next two to come out a 6-2 winner, and there's a bit of a gap now, isn't there, between Gary Anderson in that bottom spot and Michael Smith, 3 points between them now. But on the other side of things, Peter Wright as well, he lost to Johnny Clayton, lost with a 97 average, and then in the Euro Tour at the weekend, lost to Callum Ridds in a very close game. And both of those games, any mistakes that he made, he was punished for. So both these players are going into it knowing that they've had a bit of misfortune the last few weeks. But like you, this is a huge game for Peter Wright. And as far as the race for the playoffs, you mentioned there his next 2 first-round games. But you look to the final week, we don't know what the fixtures are going to be. We know how they're going to work out as far as the league table. It will be 4th against 5th. And if that gap is even less than it is now, if it's 5 points between 4th and 5th, if that goes down to 1 point, 2 point, even goal differential, then the pressure is really going to ramp on. So this is a really important game for Peter Wright. And like you, I'm going 6-4 to the world champion.
Second match of the night, it's Johnny Clayton, who's top of the table, but missed a chance last week to go a full week clear by losing the final to the man he'll now go against in the first match, James Wade, who's third behind Van Gerwen, only on goal differential. How do you see this one?
Yeah, repeat of last week's final, and Johnny Clayton probably be looking back at that one thinking, how did I not win? He was 4-2 up, he was 5-3 up, missed a dart at the ball to win it 6-3. The next leg, he hits a 180 to leave 16. James Wade doing what James Wade does, taking out 118 to take it to the decider. And again, in the decider, Johnny Clayton missing a dart at tops, I think it was, to win it 6-5. James Wade getting over the line to win 6-5, and only the third player to win multiple nights in this Premier League, and things are looking good for him. And this is a tough game to call. I think it's going to go 11 legs again. These two have had a good rivalry in the Premier League so far. We spoke about that at the start of the season. We're going to see these rivalries develop, and these two, this will be the 6th meeting they've had in this Premier League. It's 3-2 to James Wade at the moment. I think Johnny Clayton's going to level it up and go a little bit further clear at the Premier League as things stand. I'm going to go 6-5 to the Ferret.
I am going to go the opposite way. I think James Wade is just, well, I mean, Johnny Clayton is playing really, really good darts right now. Let's not let the fact that he lost that final fool you. Let's not let the fact that he lost first match in the Euro Tour fool you. He played very well in both those matches. He played very well in pretty much every match he's played over the last couple of weeks. It's taken monumental performances to beat him, and it's taken monumental performances that weren't good enough. But James Wade has been playing nearly the same level. He beat Van Gerwen when Van Gerwen was hot. He was on fire against Gezi in the semifinal with his highest ever televised average, averaging almost 115, one of the highest ever in the Premier League. It's really a match where if they both come in playing like they did last week, it's going to be fireworks from the very start, and I think it will be. But I'm going to go the other way. I think Wade is going to do what he did last week and find a way to win. So he won that one 6-5. You went 6-5 the other way here. I'm going to say it's an exact repeat, at least on terms of score line. I'll go 6-5 to them.
Third game of the night, and it is Gerwin Price against Michael Smith. Two players not in the top 4 at the moment. Can either of them make a push this week? How do you see this game going?
Well, someone's going to at least make a mini push because there's 2 points to the win here. As I said last week, Michael Smith, I think, has just a little bit too much to do. But if Peter Wright keeps losing in the quarterfinals, maybe he'll be able to start making up some of this ground. And this is that opportunity. Gerwin Price, it's not yet too much to do because all he has to do is win a couple nights and he's right back in the conversation. Even if Peter Wright's gotten a few wins, even if Peter Wright's made a final or so, 2 wins would get Gezi up to 23 with 2 nights to go. That would give him more than a fighting chance to get there. Michael Smith needs a little bit even more than that. But I think I've been tipping Michael Smith for a while now, although not every week. I know there's been a couple times I've gone against him. I'm going to stick with him in this match. I think this is Michael Smith's night. I think he's going to finally win his first night so that at the very least, everyone will have won a night by the time the Premier League campaign is done. And maybe, just maybe, give him that idea in the back of his mind that this Premier League campaign is not done. He hasn't given up by any stretch of the imagination. He was fantastic in Dublin, even though he only made the semifinals. But winning a night will do him the world of good. I think this is that night. And therefore, I think he'll beat Gerwyn Price. I'll go 6-3.
Well, I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm going to go 6-3 to Gerwyn Price on this one. 2 players that we didn't see at the weekend on the Euro Tour. 2 players that won their first game last week, but both went out in the semi-finals last week. And Gerwyn Price, yes, he did cut the gap on the playoffs from 9 points to 7 points, but he's going to need a lot more if he's going to make that top 4, and he's going to need to make a final, win these titles if he's going to catch Peter Wright or whoever's in that 4th spot to get in the playoffs. And same with Michael Smith, if he goes and wins his first night of the season this week, results dependent, he could find himself up in 5th spot and only 5 points behind. So it is still a big ask for both players, but I think this is an important game for both of them. It is make or break now, I think, for both of these players' seasons. So for me, I'm going to go with Gerwyn Price. I think it's a tough one to call, and these two haven't played each other for a long time. The last time Gerwyn Price was 4-0 up, I think, and he lost 6-4 in the Premier League. So I'm going to say a bit of revenge this time for Gerwyn Price. I'm going to go 6-3 to the Iceman.
And lastly, of the quarterfinals, it's 2nd against 5th, the most recent Euro Tour winner Michael van Gerwen going against the Masters champion Joe Cullen. How do you see this one?
If I'd been asked this after the Premier League night last week before the Euro Tour, we saw Michael van Gerwen lose in the first round to James Wade, lose with I think it was a 21 darter James Wade had to win that deciding leg. So his confidence wouldn't have been very high after that, but he's gone to the Euro Tour in Austria. He's won the title. He's put in some big performances in and amongst the run to the title. So the confidence will be high coming into this. And I think it will go Michael van Gerwen's way. These two are pretty close in the head-to-head in the Premier League. It's 2-1 to Michael van Gerwen. Joe Cullen, of course, won the final they had in Rotterdam to win his night of the season. But I think we'll see Michael get the win on this occasion. I'm going to go same score as the last time, 6-3 to MVG.
Yeah, it's hard to pick against Van Gerwen in this one, but at the same time, I mean, Joe Cullen, even though he's right now just outside, and even though he has the lowest average in the tournament of anyone, he's made a very good showing of himself over the course of this Premier League campaign. Last week aside, I don't think he's going to roll over in this match. I think he's going to come back and play much better than we saw him play in Dublin. But I don't think it'll be enough. You went 6-3. We had the same scoreline in all the matches, even though a couple of them we went different. I'm not going to let that continue. I think this one will be a little bit closer. I'll make it a second 6-5. I think he'll go to a last leg decider, but I think Van Gerwen, it's not going to be a 21 darter this time around. I think he'll pull out a 12 darter if he has the darts. Maybe it'd be 13 or 14. If it's against the darts, he'll put in a 12 darter and get the job done. I'm going 6-5 to the Green Machine.
And don't forget our last man standing competition. If you're still involved in that, we've got 11 of you left involved. So make sure you get your pick in. Let us know which player you're backing to win their quarterfinal. Remember, you can't pick someone that you've already picked in the competition. So you're running out of players. Make that pick wisely. And remember, the last player left standing will win a prize. Now we'll finish up with some listener questions. Both of them come from Philip Davies. The first one is, do you think the WDF men's and women's champions will get invited to the Grand Slam of Darts this year?
Ooh, and it's a tough one because, well, we just don't know what the PDC are going to do. So I'm going to change the question slightly to should they. There's arguments both ways on this because one thing you can say, and rightfully so, is that idea of a cross-code event has it ran its course. Yes, the WDF has its own set of events now, and it does have a different circuit, but there's not that same divide. The players are still, for the most part, able to compete against each other in events so long as they're not broadcast, and there's no conflict. And that's why players play some of these local opens, and there's not that animosity. And many of the players playing the WDF circuit went to Q School and can play the Challenge Tour. And if they do well in the Challenge Tour, might qualify for both World Championships. Obviously, at that point, they'll have to select one. So there's not that same divide and that same need, or not need's not the right word, but that same. There's really not any momentum behind making sure that those players will be at the Grand Slam so that we can see matchups so that we wouldn't otherwise see like there was in the old days. But at the same point, it is a good carrot to have. And many of those players who are winning the WDF World Championships or making it far in it are those players that are going to be among the favorites at Q School next year. And to get that experience on the big PDC stage will do them good if they do win a tour card and if they do make it. So I think it still would be good to have those spots. But as I've said before, what I really want to see is a carrot for the people playing the regional tours, especially as those start to pick back up to the level they were at before the pandemic. To have the CDC number one get invited would be great. To have the Oceanic number one get invited for the DPA events down in Australia would be great. The Asian tour number one, or even 1 and 2, because we're talking so many different countries there, I think would be wonderful. And there's other tours as well. I'd rather see that and make up 8 of the spots. If there's still a spot or 2 left for the WDF men's and women's world champion, add those in as well. But so I'm going to say I think there is a better alternative, but I wouldn't say no if it's alongside what I've suggested.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely like to see it. And Neil Duffy impressed us at Lakeside, and when we spoke to him in the past, we've spoke to him about when he lost in the final round of the BDO qualifiers for the Grand Slam to the late Andy Fordham. So it would be a nice story for him to get that shot at the Grand Slam, and the same with Bo Greaves as well, only 18. How well she played at Lakeside, to see her get that shot at the Grand Slam would be interesting viewing. The PDC, they have given out that olive branch to the WDF already with the tour card holders, letting them still play at Lakeside, letting them play in one of these flagship events like the Grand Slam. I think that is another step entirely, isn't it? And as you say, the Grand Slam, the cross code element of it, that went last year because we didn't have the BDO. And that was the major selling point when this event first started, 2007. It was seeing the BDO against the PDC. It was seeing Gary Anderson, Mark Webster, Martin Adams, when he accepted his invite, go up against the likes of Phil Taylor and Raymond van Barneveld and all the PDC players. When we had the one last year with no BDO representation, we saw the youngsters come in. Bradley Brooks, Nathan Rafferty both make the last 16. Fallon Sherrick get to a quarter final. It was a successful tournament. So it's a tricky one. I'd like to see it, but maybe the PDC are going to go down a different route and keep it to just their events, and that's where you qualify from.
And then lastly, another question from Philip Davies. Will the World Cup of Darts have any new or returning countries this year?
I think there'll be some changes this year. Look back to last year, we saw China and Singapore come back in because they missed 2020. We had Greece, they were a last-minute replacement for Croatia, who were going to come back in the tournament. New Zealand, they missed out because of the travel restrictions. Latvia, they were the first reserve. And I think that kind of tells you really that with this World Cup, 32 nations involved, you could quite easily bump it up to 36, 40 nations and get more people involved because of the global appeal that we've got in the game at the moment. But when we last spoke to the PDC, that wasn't in their plans to increase the number of nations. So at this moment in time, it's going to make it more competitive to get in. And I think we will see some changes. I think we'll see Croatia in this year. I think last year, Boris Kirchmar, he was unwell, I think, so that's why they didn't play in the end. But I'd imagine that they'll get another chance to be involved. Latvia, I mean, it was a bit of a shock that they weren't involved last year after that debut in 2020. And Madars Razma continues to make strides. He's pushing towards the top 40 on that order of merit. And I think, for me, if I was making the decisions, then if you've got a PDC tour card holder, I'd give them a spot because it's a good reward for players that are playing the tour, and it does help grow the game, and it entices more people to maybe play Q School because you get that shot at playing in the World Cup. Russia, I think we probably won't see them, and for obvious reasons, a lot of sports are banning Russians from playing in their sports at the moment. So Boris Koltsov and whoever was going to partner him, you'd imagine they're not going to be involved. Aside from that, I think you're probably looking at New Zealand getting back involved again if the travel restrictions allow. Now, who would I kick out? I mean, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I'd probably look at nations that maybe don't have a tour card holder at the moment, maybe a Finland or a Sweden or a Hungary or an Italy. But yes, it's a tough one to kick nations out of it. But if I was going to make a priority, it would be getting those nations that do have the tour card holders. So getting Croatia and Latvia involved this year.
Yeah, I'm more or less in agreement with you there. I don't see Hungary getting kicked out because of the PDC's push into Eastern Europe. But I do think Latvia, at the very least, should return. I think Croatia is a very good bet to return, and I agree that Russia would drop out. And one country that you didn't mention that I think could be an interesting addition, they have been in the World Cup before, but it's been a very long time, is France. And that's because of Thibaut Tricol making the Lakeside final. I could see France being brought back into the conversation. I don't know if they will, because I mean, who are you going to drop? Are you going to drop those Baltic countries where there is yes, there's not currently a tour card holder from Finland or Sweden, but there's the continued investment and that continued association with the Nordic and Baltic Tour, continuing to give the World Cup spots is a good reward for what has been one of the PDC's success stories in an affiliated tour, in terms of putting in a good quality tournament that is going to go ahead, and it's at a professional level. Not necessarily the quality is, I'm not saying is at the PDC level, but in terms of the organization is at a professional level. So I think it's tough to say that those countries are going to be dropped, even if they don't have a tour card. So I don't think France will get in, but I think they should be in the conversation. And if they do get in, maybe it is replacing Italy, because it is equally a market that the PDC could look at in the future, but having that world finalist, even if it's over in the WDF, might just see the return for the first time in, I think, 8 years for one of Britain's nearest neighbors. Anything else for this week?
As always, we have to say big thank you to our guests for joining us. Big thank you to everyone for listening. Thank you to our sponsor, Dartwolf. If you want more Dynamite Darts content, head on over to dartwolf.tv. Give Dartwolf a follow at Dartwolf 180. Next week's episode is the big one, 250. Exciting times ahead. We're looking forward to the big 250, and until then, of course, there's plenty of darts going on. We've got the Premier League on Thursday. We've got another Euro Tour this weekend. All the other darts that are going on for the next few days. You know what to do. Enjoy the darts.
And until you enjoy the darts, you're just going to have to hang tight a little bit. But next week, as Alex said, should be a big show. The 250th fall one should be a big one as well, because it'll mean once that next one's done, we'll only be 250 episodes away from 501. So 2 consecutive big episodes coming up for you guys. Let us know if there's anything you want us to discuss. We're only a couple months now away from the World Matchplay, the first women's World Matchplay. Obviously, some senior events coming on as well. And, just a bunch of other events all around the world. Enjoy the darts until then. Hang tight, and we'll see you soon.